the UN Charter, which speaks so eloquently to the aspirations of men and women around the world to live peacefully and secure lives, is so readily ignored by some of its signatory states. We must ask how the Declaration, which states that everyone has the right to life, liberty, the security of person, that no one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment, and that no one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile, is so casually introduced by one of the most powerful nations in the world. Truly, my dear friends, what is best in us, what is most hopeful about us, what gives our joint future as a species such a promise, is so beautifully articulated in the Charter and the Declaration. These are principles by which we should organize ourselves as a human family. These are principles at the core of any meaningful democracy. And yet, many of our eyes have adjusted to the shadows that power and greed have cast on the existence of our brothers and sisters around the world. Whereas the brave and visionary people who created the United Nations could see a world beyond the catastrophe they had just endured, we live in an age where what has been gained in principle, what has been recognized in fact, has been eroded by an acceptance that it is better to accommodate evil and hope it changes on itself than to seek to change it through pressure, denouncement, and direct confrontation. What else explains the presence of China on the United Nations Human Rights Council, a body supposedly responsible for strengthening the promotion and protection of human rights around the world? Back in March, I had a chance to address the Human Rights Council in the capacity of Chinese citizen. This was just after Libya was suspended for its outrageous abuses against its own people. While in front of that body, I recalled the case of Liu Xiaobo, among many others. I asked how China's communist regime, whose victims ran into hundreds of millions, could remain a member while Libya was expelled for its abuses. Where were you, I asked the representatives of member nations, when there was only an empty chair at the Nobel Peace Prize in Oslo? Where were you, I asked, when police and hired thugs brutally beat Chen Guangcheng, a blind human rights defender whose house has been surrounded all day, every day since his release from prison in September of 2010? When, I asked, will you demand accountability from the individuals responsible for the Tiananmen massacre and for the gross and systematic violation of human rights in China, and so on and so forth? To be sure, there were many, many more questions that I didn't get enough time to ask. Unfortunately, I received no answers. More unfortunate than this, China still remains a member of the United Nations Human Rights Council. Dear friends, it says a lot about the importance of our work that an institution created to represent the best of what we can be retreat from conflict with the worst. It says a lot about the work it must be done, that discussions we are having here today must take place outside the United Nations instead of inside its house, and must take place among NGOs instead of among governments. Clearly, we have a great deal to do, and so we have gathered here today in the shadow valley of our times to summon the wisdom and the best heritage of mankind and remind the entire world once again, each one of us has an opportunity to act in the way worthy of the best of our